back, everyone. I'm here today with Sam Skinner, and we're here today to talk about the WD 200 and the amazing experience that you had out there. Um, First of all, how are you? You've had some time to recover, I think, since it happened. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I've had a little bit of tendon damage in sort of both feet, joining up to the shin. So yeah, it's been a little bit of uncomfort, but gradually getting back into a bit of training, sort of 3 weeks on.
Um,
Had some time to reflect on the race, which we'll go into.
At
Uh,
least it was right over Christmas, so you could just eat all the
yeah,
food you want then, couldn't you?
yeah, it was great time of year to have a 200-mile race. I think.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you start off by giving us a brief introduction into your running career, and what brought you up to doing 200 milers?
Yeah, so I've sort of always dabbled in sport. I played football from a young age, up until I was about 18, 19, and then stopped that and started up boxing. So I boxed for sort of 7 or 8 years up until sort of 2014. I think I had my last amateur bout. Um, on from there, I had a bit of a gap, probably 2 or 3 years, where sort of had to nurse some demons, if you like, and yeah, started up running. And I was that classic case of starting with a 5K. I think I was about 13 and a half, 14 stone. I went up to after I stopped boxing. Didn't take too much control on my weight, and yeah, so it was just sort of getting into fitness, really, just trying to sort of manage. I've met quite a lot of ultra runners in the last few years, and they've got sort of similar stories to me. Um, so yeah, classic case of 5, 10Ks, half marathon, and it's sort of like the whole what's next. Um, I did my first marathon in 2017. It's like the Portsmouth Coastal Marathon, which was local to me. I'm from Southampton. So yeah, just did a bit of road running and things like that. Got a semi good time for that. I think it was about 3:35 or something like that. Really struggled, classic, no nutrition or anything like that. So yeah, got out of that. Pleased to survive that, if you like.
Yeah.
And then yeah, sort of again dipped in and out of training after that, and it wasn't until I would probably properly say 2019, 2020, just before lockdown, where I started setting myself some challenges just to sort of channel, the inner chimp. And I actually set sail. I signed up quite quickly to South Downs Way 100 in 2019, but it got, or 2020, and it got postponed
Mm.
um, because of COVID. So I sort of went out on my own in November and just did it. I had a few people sort of meet me on course. I walked probably half of it, but I was raising a little bit of money for charity. And I just thought, yeah, I'll get on and do it. So that was my first sort of introduction into really long sort of running. Um, and yeah, since then I've done various sort of 50Ks, 100Ks. It wasn't until sort of last year I really knuckled down. Sorry, not last year, 2021, 2020, 2021. I really sort of knuckled down with my training. I took part in race across Snowdonia in
Mhm.
21, where yeah, it was a relatively small field, but I came third in that. So that was my first sort of podium. And that's where I first met Simon Roberts, um, who sort of persuaded me to do the Dragons back. So I sort of went on. I thought, oh, how can I challenge myself even more?
Yeah.
And I signed up to the Dragons back in 2021, which was really tough. Um, so yeah, I've sort of always gone at things full bore. I'm one of those sort of slog it out, and yeah, I'm learn the hard way. But yeah, I've had a couple of good results the last 2 years, sort of top 10 in the arc last year. That was my first proper 100-mile race.
Wow.
Again, still learning nutrition over that distance, but and then I did Lakeland in July last year, and again had a really good race. Sort of after the arc, sort of got approached, a message on social media from Precision Hydration. Been doing a bit with them and working on, sodium intake, salt, and did the sweat tests and all that, and yeah, felt really good for Lakeland in July.
Yeah.
And I managed to sort of have a fairly good run there, sort of 22 hours, I think I was on that. So yeah, I'm still sort of finding my distance, and then straight after Lakeland, Centurion posted that they were doing this 200. So it was like, let's raise the bar even more,
It's funny how you start doing 5Ks, don't you? And you're just like, oh, I'm just doing it for fitness. And then suddenly it's like 3 years down the line and you're like, what's my nutrition? What my shoes are wearing? And it all becomes very technical, doesn't it? Did you find that was with you as well? Like in such a short space of time, it's now, such a huge part of your life.
Oh, it's huge, yeah. And obviously the training that goes with it, which we'll go into, but I just love it, it's my sort of escapism. In everyday life, life's hectic, so it's it's nice to that's my sort of going to the pub now is going for a run. Yeah.
So what drew you to the 200? You mentioned it was a step up from stuff you'd done in the past. And what was your training like surrounding those? You can't go out and run 100 miles as a training.
No.
So what was your training schedule like?
Yeah, good question. It was a lot of zone 1 and 2 training. So, I've actually got a coach now. So we're working on a lot of longer sort of back-to-back runs. I've just recently started up a running club, the Georgian Falcons. So what I was doing was going out a lot of real early morning running on the South Downs, which is where half the race was, and then I would meet sort of some of the running club sort of halfway in, which was nice to have a bit of company on the run. So that was a big part of my training, was on the South Downs, which is where I run locally. There's a lot of, as I said, a lot of zone 1 and 2. I actually packed my bag one night and tried to imitate sections of the course. I recce'd it really well, that 200 where it was coming onto the South Downs, and tried to imitate where I'd be at that time during the race, sleep deprived and things like that. So yeah, that worked for me. But we'll go on to the race in a minute, I'm sure. Yeah.
So what was the beginning of the race like? You've done all of this training. Was there a sense of anticipation entering that race, or did you feel really, you'd put the hard work in?
Yeah, this sort of stats don't lie, I'm a great believer in that. You put the hard work in. That's what I'm learning in the mileage, and there's no shortcuts to this, and I'm still learning now. But I knew I'd put in, a good shift since Lakeland, coming off the back of Lakeland, and I was sort of, I'd probably say up around 2.5 to 3,000 miles I'd done up to the end of last year before that race. So a lot of elevation. I was lucky enough to go out to Chamonix after Lakeland and do a bit of altitude training out there, and things like that. So yeah, I came into the race, I was confident, and yeah, I sort of showed that by the way I sort of went off.
Yeah. I mean, I was dot watching from the very beginning, and I was kind of amazed you held the front position for, a really, really long time. Was that your strategy going into the race, was to just, sit at a nice, comfortable pace for as long as possible?
No, definitely not. The occasion got to me. The plan was always to track the leaders, see how the race settled. And I did that really well at Lakeland. Keep going back to Lakeland, I had a good run on that. But yeah, just felt comfortable early on. I think one of the leaders, I think Roy, at the first proper crew point, stopped and changed his socks. And I think he was leading from the off with a guy called Nickel. And then I sort of managed to catch him after about 15 to 20 miles. And yeah, it just felt good. I'd recce'd that section. It was really wet underfoot. And yeah, just ran to Phil really. And, looking at it, it was a bit too quick. I think I ran sub sort of 21 hours for my first 100, so those sorts of stats, they don't. But no, I felt good leading right up to 160 miles. Early on, probably after about 100, I thought my gaiters were a bit tight, which later on now we know that my feet swelled right up. It was just sort of the adrenaline, and I should have cut them off earlier. But yeah, my crew had to cut them off at sort of 130, 140 miles. So that indicated there was some swelling there. And yeah, I paid the price for it. I think at one stage I was 8 to 10 miles in front, but I just couldn't hold it with this tendon damage, and I really had to slog it out to get second place. I think even third was coming up behind me in the end. The sleep deprivation, and yeah, just
What was it like running through the dark? It's all right doing it for a 100 miler because it's just one night. It's usually, isn't it? But 200 miles, you're kind of creeping into those next couple nights, aren't you? How was that for you?
You are, yeah, and hindsight's the thing. This was all new to me. As we were saying before, I've gone from 100 straight into 200. That's just who I am. But looking back on it, I probably had a bit of time on second place, I think, Rye, and I should have probably, I could have slept a little bit more and things like that. But the damage was already done to the tendons. It was I was a little bit of a sitting duck in the end, but I rolled the dice, and as James put it, and it nearly paid off. So yeah, a lot learnt for the next one.
Exactly. Yeah, it sounds absolutely amazing. Do you think if it wasn't for your tendons, do you think you would have really made a good thing, or do you think the sleep deprivation would have maybe played a hand in it as well?
No, definitely not. I'd have slogged it out. It was just, and anyone who knows me, I've never DNF, touch wood, but I would have kept going to the death. It was just sheerly that I couldn't move on my feet. It was, yeah, pretty hard work, shall we say.
Yeah.
Those last 40 miles really tested me mentally.
Yeah.
Along with the hallucinations and God knows what. Once we got back to the North Downs Way, I was asking trees for directions and all sorts. It was pretty, yeah, I was spent.
I love hearing about hallucinations because I'm going into my first 100 miler in this year, and I'm just like, oh, I wonder if I'll get hallucinations
Yeah,
in 100 miles. So, did you find
it's
they were just, it's a little bit more, discombobulating?
yeah, strange because you're doing it. I had one little hallucination on the Arc of Attrition 2023, and it was a bit odd, but this was really, it wasn't just one. It was, I was seeing faces in the chalk, like the trees. I thought, there was people in the bushes, and I was running at the bushes saying, I'm not scared of you, come on. And it was all a little bit, yeah, and then I'd snap out of it for 20 minutes, and then I'd get another one. It was pretty, yeah, it's pretty full on. Can't
Amazing.
really train. You can't really train for that.
No.
But
So, what was your nutrition like? What sort of things did you find really helped during these sorts of races?
yeah, nutrition went really well. That was a positive. Again, been working closely with Precision Hydration, who we had a bit of a nutrition plan, so we knew exactly what carb intake, to have an hour, and my crew were on top of that. They had a list, obviously prior. It was, really well managed. I think the key for me was, especially after the sort of the 100 miles, where I was quite fatigued. The crew were doing a lot of the solid food. They were sort of giving me rice pudding and things like that at crew points. Better food than what the gels and blocks and the liquid carbs, what I call proper food. So yeah, they manage that really well. Don't think I can really fault the nutrition. You know, a lot of people have problems with their gut issue, you know, after 24 hours, but I've got pretty granite guts. So they say I can have a roast dinner and run. So yeah, I'm quite,
Wow.
yeah,
I
I'll
think
eat anything.
1 in a million then, if you can have a
Yeah,
full meal and run, that's
yeah, I'm
amazing.
quite lucky. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So how did it feel in those last sort of 10 miles? You know, you've gone through this entire journey. How did it feel sort of getting towards the end?
Yeah, it was really tough, quite emotional as well. You know, I'm not afraid to admit that. It was sort of, you know, I knew how close I was for my first sort of proper win at something like that. But yeah, it strives me even more to focus on training and scenarios like that even more. You know, and I can't wait to, you know, do that race again, and others similar. You know, I want to tick them all off. You know, so I've got the spine that's coming up. I'm going to be watching that. I know a lot of guys on that, and you might see a little bit of rolling the dice on that race. I think this year there's some really good guys that I've, you know, ran with at Dragon's Back and Lakeland and a few of the other races. So I'm looking forward to watching that unfold next week.
Yeah, me too. I'm gonna be
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna be hopping out on the Pennine Way all the way through it just to be like just, you know, excited to see because it's a really incredible lineup, really
it
incredible
is. Yeah, yeah.
out
I'm looking forward. I'm going to try and get up there as well, I think. So I might see you on course.
there. Hey, so do you hope to do the spine in the
Oh,
future?
definitely. Yeah, yeah, without doubt. That's on the list. Yeah, like you say, as you know, this community. You know, there's something about the trail running community, and everyone's so welcoming. Um, Again, touching back on the Georgian Falcon Trail Running Club, which I've just sort of set up. You know, it's just got that whole community feel. And yeah, looking forward to challenges ahead. It'd be
Amazing.
great.
Amazing. So do you think running an ultra in the winter offers like different challenges to say when you did the Lakeland in July? What sort of differences did you see in those two environments?
Yeah, just sort of kit management. You know, getting used to running at night in the cold with the wind chill and things like that. We were fairly lucky, although we had sort of some of the wettest November and October on record. It was really wet underfoot. I think you probably saw a few of the photos that were released. You know, up to sort of waist height, especially on the Vanguard Way in water. So yeah, you can't really imitate that. You've just got to sort of get wet. And there's all this, you know, do you wear shell socks or whatever they're called, and this, that, and the other. You just got to go for it. You know, you're never going to keep the water out when it's up at that. You just got to sort of go for it. So yeah, no, I think like you say, just getting out recceing in that weather, trying kit, and yeah, we sort of nailed that as well. I felt after sort of 150 160 miles I did get quite chesty
Mm.
on that race. I think it's just because of how spent I was, and you know, it was the fog and the chill really set on my lungs on the second part of the race. So could have maybe looked at another layer. You see quite a few photos of that race. I was running in a t-shirt. I'm quite a hot runner, and yeah, probably could have done with a base layer or something going into the night.
I know you look like you were in the middle of summer with your t-shirt on, and
Yeah,
everybody else was all in
yeah. So again, we learn on that, and moving forward, I'll probably look at investing in a few more base layers.
So
Might have to have one of those for the spine. I have
oh
to
yeah,
get
exactly.
that.
Exactly. Enter
Yeah,
races where you have to wear
yeah.
it. So, what's your recovery been like? It's been over Christmas, so I'm sure it's been a lot more relaxed than maybe it would be in the middle of summer.
Yeah, I've sort of touched on that that chestiness, but you know, I can honestly say I had 2 full days in bed after. I was just so swollen,
Mm.
and my chest, I was coughing up so much green crap. So yeah, I really, it's good in a way, because one of the things I always like to do is give my best, and know that I've really given everything, and I did on that race. And I, like I say, I come up just short. So yeah, no, there's no regrets on that at all. We just learn, like I said before, just learn from them, you know. So yeah, recovery wise, 2 days in bed, seeing the physio twice a week, getting acupuncture in both tendons. They're still quite swollen now. I've just managed a 5K run since the race, so I'm just sort of slowly getting back into it. So I don't want to, I don't want to have a prolonged period off. I just want to do everything that the physio suggests. And yeah, hopefully, I did have an entry to the Arc 100 in
Right.
January. I'll be crewing my mate instead. I definitely won't be doing that.
Good, good. Time to listen
Yeah,
to your body a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah,
So you mentioned that you feel like you maybe came up short a little bit, but speaking for myself and a few other people, we thought it was, amazing that you got up to, 160 miles before sort of dropping back. Do you think you're a little bit hard on yourself for coming in second place? Because I think it's phenomenal, because I think I'd have given up as soon as I've
yeah,
come in that much pain. I think I'd have sat down and been like, all right, I'm out. So how do you
yeah.
feel about the whole thing?
No, I think, like I just said to you then, one of the things with me, obviously position wise, as you get a bit better at it, it does matter. But as long as I'm spent and I've given everything,
Yeah,
I've given. Yeah, I was close, but not close enough, And um, if I had, used those tactics and stretched them like I did, and then it paid off and the tendons held up, then we'd be having a different conversation. But fair play to Rye. He felt awful in the first part of the race. I spoke to him, after the race, and he nearly quit at one point. So yeah, again, we'd have had a different. I might have walked in from 160 miles and still come first. But hats off to him. He was game, and a lot of experience there, and he hunted me down perfectly. I think we ran about 7 or 8 miles, I think, from Alton up to Farnham, and then yeah, I was just swollen. That's where they cut my gaiters and socks and that off, and they were
wow,
just huge. So yeah,
amazing. So what do you have in store for the new year? What sort of things are you hoping to
um,
get into?
so yeah, I've got a UTS 100K entry, so I
Amazing.
look forward to that. I'm just going to start trying to build the points for UTMB, the stone, um, for later on. And I have got a Centurion. That was my first Centurion race, the 200. I've entered the 100, but I've got an entry into Lakeland again for the 100 there. And
Amazing.
who knows, I might be back for the 200 at the end of the year.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for speaking with me today.
No, thanks,
It
Emily.
was amazing, dot watching you the entire distance, and I really look forward to seeing you in the future.
Oh, thanks ever so much.
See you later.
See you later.